Jim Vitarello is a lawyer and is also director of the DC PIRG program, which is a student-based organization doing research and action projects in the district. They have been active in the formation of a housing coalition composed of members of tenants organizations and other community groups throughout the city. What are the goals of your housing coalition?
Well, the main thing is to bring together a number of community organizations and individuals who are interested in housing to develop a citizens platform in housing, and then to go to the various candidates for city council and the mayoralty elections and ask them to endorse this platform, or to actually sign the contract. I'm a lawyer, I shouldn't call it that. Sign the platform. And we hope to invite them to our meetings and to discuss the platform, to open up a dialogue in many of the housing issues. Now, I can give you, let's say, the most important issues that we've defined. One is, of course, rent control. Another one is landlord-tenant reform. Another one is the conversion of condominiums, or to condominiums, particularly in low and moderate income areas like Adams Morgan. Another important issue is land speculation and the removal of low and moderate income people from areas such as Adams Morgan or Capitol Hill, and the influx of middle income people into these townhouses.
How are the landlords responding to the bill?
To the rent control bill, or? Okay. Well, the landlords at first sat down and negotiated with my organization and 3 other tenant organizations in a very favorable way under the auspices of City Council. But near the end of negotiations, for whatever reason, I don't know, they backed down on all of their agreements and took a very adversary role, in which case we then also took one. So we then proposed our tenants' position to City Council, and the landlords presented their position to City Council. City Council staff are now drafting that law, and we think it's going to be a very strong law, but it would help to have citizens to go to City Council members and ask them what they think about the rent control bill. Let me just mention 2 or 3 very important parts of that bill. One is something called eviction control, which would change completely the way upon which the landlord evicts you. Today he can evict you for no reason at all. Under our proposed bill, the burden would be on the landlord to prove just cause, and he would be limited to 4 or 5 specific just causes, and the burden, as I said, would be completely on him. Another important aspect of the law would be that the landlord could not raise the rent at all until he is in substantial compliance with the housing code, and if he's not, he can't raise your rent. A third very important thing is that if the building is seriously under-maintained and is in a deteriorating condition, the tenants can go to the Rent Control Commission and ask them for a rent decrease. These are all very radical proposals, I might add, that no other jurisdiction has. Not all 3 of them anyway. Some jurisdictions, such as Massachusetts, have 1 or 2, but not all 3. And then, of course, there's the rent control formula itself, which we're asking a limit of about 3.5% for 73, and about 4% for 74. And anything above that, the landlord has to have a hardship hearing on.
What can people do if they want to become involved in the Housing Coalition?
Well, in the Housing Coalition, which I might remind you involves a number of housing issues, not just rent control, they can come to a series of weekly meetings that we're having now at the Martin Luther King Library on 10th and G Street, I believe it is. We're meeting at 12 noon, I think, or 12:30 down in their auditorium every week. But I suggest you call my office at 676-7388. We're in the phone book, too, to find out more about those meetings so that you can begin to work on any one of 8 or 9 housing issues that we're working on right now.
One final question that I have is, some of the tenants in Adams Morgan have been forming escrow funds. Would you describe what they are and how they're used as a method of leverage against the landlord?
Well, escrow's fund has been used in the city for quite a while now. Basically, it's a rent strike where you withhold your rent, you don't give it to the landlord, but you do put it into a savings account. That's really what an escrow fund is. Now, I suggest that if tenant association or just a group of tenants are going to do this, I really urge them to get a lawyer. I'm not trying to give jobs to lawyers, believe me, but I found that tenant associations that don't do that find themselves in a lot of hot water afterwards when they finally have to settle with the landlord. Of course, if you never intend to have any kind of settlement to thumb your nose at the court as well, then I suppose you don't have to set up an escrow account. But then I also suggest that you're going to be in awfully hot water. So I urge you to make it systematic and to plan out your escrow account. Make sure that one or two people are accountable for receiving the rents on the part of the tenant association, and by all means obtain legal counsel early in the stage. And there are cheap lawyers now that are available.
Thank you very much.